Hey guys, thank you. Good evening to you as well. I think we'll wait for 5 more minutes and then we can start. Yeah, hey Kunal. So in the meantime, if you want to discuss about something, feel free to ping me in the chats. I'll be more than happy to uh, discuss. Sure. Yeah, Balmurli. At this point, if you're getting started, I think it's pretty good because yes, this field is still quite new and we have a lot of future scope going forward. Okay. So Praveen asked me tell about my total experience. So I'm relatively new. I believe I have around 4 years of experience working in machine learning domain, and I can relate to a lot of people because I switched from a Java background. So in my first company, I was working as a Java developer, and after that, I switched to uh, machine learning. How did you land into machine learning? So for me, the journey was it was very enjoying for me. I had a lot of fun. Uh, so if- for landing a job, I feel it's very important that you should have the basics correct. So I took a lot of online courses. All of us probably would have done the same. So I took a lot of online courses on Coursera, Udacity, Udemy, and that did definitely help, but one thing that actually helped me was to do a lot of small projects, and this was when I was just starting. So I was just out of college. I was pretty new, and I just started learning, started doing some projects, and then within a year I transitioned into a big data and machine learning domain, so which was pretty interesting. So if you are looking to start into this field, I think that is definitely that you guys could think about. Uh, Thanks, Roshan. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well as well. Uh, yeah, so I think if you have 24 plus years of experience, I think it's going to be definitely very useful because you will already have a lot of experience, working in this industry. So if you could correlate. Let's say if, for example, I don't exactly know what you work in, Bala, but let's say if you work in databases. So let's say how can you integrate machine learning with databases for effectively querying capabilities? I'm not exactly sure, but that is definitely going to be very helpful because let's say if I wanted to get into that space, I will first have to understand databases and then I can apply machine learning to that. But if you already have a good experience in that field, then you can correlate these two fields, and I think you will be a much better prospect for the company. I hope that answers your question, Bala. Hey Manish, I hope you are doing well. How to connect Google Cloud with ML project? So the good thing about Google Cloud is that it provides you a lot of functionalities. So if you have to, first you have to understand the use case. And let's say if you're starting out, Google will give you a lot of free credits, so you can definitely use that. So if I'm doing some project, if I wanted to do some computer vision, I can directly use Google's Cloud Vision API, which is effective. So it depends on the use case, but definitely I feel you could use Google Cloud services because they are state of the art. So even if you try to develop something of your own, it is still going to be a bit tough because Google has a lot of data. They have trained their models on a lot of a lot of engineers would have trained that model on a lot of images or a lot of data sets. So it's better that you use those services. Like how can we upload our assets from Google Cloud? I think I am not a Google Cloud expert, so I probably don't have the answer to your question. But definitely, I think after the session, you can definitely reach out to me and ask these questions. I'll be more than happy to share some links. Bala, your question is what can we learn in this live stream? So in this live stream, we will look at very basic concepts. So I will not go into a lot of details. I will just give you a clear understanding of how exactly to proceed with the problem, what exactly I do. And I think you could relate to it because I am also pretty new to this whole field. Although I have a bit of experience, I have presented my work in India and internationally as well. I feel that you guys would have a lot of good intuition, not just from myself, but from the whole community at Analytics Vidhya.
Akshay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hey.
let's begin, right?
Yeah. Let's do that. So I'll park the questions for now. But feel free to I'll answer those two questions, Manish and Amna's question at the end. And I'll be more than happy to answer every question that you have. Okay, but for the sake of time, let's just start. So I'll start sharing my screen. Okay. Uh,
Let me just introduce you and give the instructions for the webinar, and then we can
sure,
proceed.
sure, makes
Okay,
sense.
so good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on going beyond your first machine learning project. My name is Abhiraj Suresh, and I am the Associate Project Manager at Analytics Vidhya. I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. I'm delighted to be joined by Akshay Bahadur. He's a development engineer at Symantec. He's our presenter today. And before we kick things off and I hand it over to him, there are a couple of administrative items I wanted to cover. First, we are recording the webinar and the recording will be made available and shared with you in the next 2 to 3 days. If you face any technical issues, such as the audio going out, please log out and log back in. That should solve the problem. If that doesn't work, we are also streaming this webinar live on Analytics Vidya's Facebook account, so you can join us there. You can you can use the Q&A window to ask any question you might have during the webinar, and we'll do our best to answer it. Now on to our presenter today. Akshay's interest in computer science sparked when he was working on a women's safety application aimed towards women's welfare in India. Since then, he has been incessantly working on improving his skills. He came across uh, machine learning then, and has made several open source contributions in the field of ML. He has made successful prototypes like autonomous cars, alphabet recognition, cancer classification, and gesture recognition using learning models. His ambition is to make valuable contributions towards the ML community and leave a message of perseverance and tenacity. So, without any further ado, handing over the stage to our presenter Akshay. Over to you.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. So before I start, just wanted to discuss this topic. So the name is going beyond your first machine learning project. And this is more of a discussion. I'll not exactly say that this is a session. So feel free to ask any questions. Feel free to stop me at any time. We have good moderators. So if you feel that you want me to clear something out, feel free to reach out to them. I'll be more than happy to answer these questions at the end or even in the middle of the session, depending on the question. All right, so this is more of a discussion, an open-ended discussion. So I my approach could be different from yours. So I'll be more than happy to uh, consider your ideas as well. Yeah. So the date is actually wrong. So it's not July 02nd, but to be very honest, this webinar was actually planned for July. That was last month, but due to certain last minute complications, I had to cancel that and reschedule it for today. And I just want to thank Analytics Vidya, not only for organizing this session, but also for giving that flexibility to me and to the participants to reschedule depending on some emergency. So a big thanks to them. I have been associated with Analytics Vidya for quite some time. I presented my work at Data Hack Summit last year, and it was great. One of the best events that I've been a part of. So and I continue and I hope that Analytics Vidya continues to do these events. Probably as soon as possible when things go back to normal. I'll be more than happy to come to some of these events. All right. So before we start, an important link. So this link, I mean the screen that you are seeing right now, all of the recordings, all of the resources are available at this link. So just go to bit.ly/beyondml. So if you click on this link, or just type bit.ly/beyondml, let me quickly do that for you. It is going to transform you to this GitHub page, which is my GitHub page. You will find all the resources, the slides, the registration link, all of these information available. We also have some other links which you will get at in the slide itself. Apart from that, you can also check out all of my other projects that I have done. So I have done a lot of interesting open source projects. You can definitely have a look at that while visiting the GitHub link. All right, back to the slide. Okay, so yeah, all right, let's move forward. So first we'll talk about our first machine learning model. So I wanted to keep this session as basic as possible, and of course we'll try to deep dive slightly into this field, and then of course we can discuss in detail. Depends on personal interest and personal preference. So we'll first discuss about our first machine learning model. So there are a couple of challenges when it comes to developing machine learning models. One of the basic ones is that how much should I know before I start? Because this is one of the most common questions that I also had, and I also get at regularly, is when is a person ready to start an ML project, or the ML learning. ML is interdisciplinary, which means that ML is not just computer science or just mathematics. It's an amalgamation of computer science, mathematics, and at the same time, you have to have domain knowledge. So if, let's say, I'm working on images, I need to have image processing knowledge as well. If I'm working on textual data, I need to understand how languages work. So slight that's a slight hiccup for people to get started, because people can get overwhelmed. uh, of course, what the problem statement do I choose for the project? So the problem statement is very, very important. I think one of the most important aspects that I look for is how I define a problem statement. And we'll discuss all of these in detail, don't worry about that. And of course, as already mentioned, it's interdisciplinary. You'll have a lot of different features that you have to implement. Maybe, you have to make the machine learning model. At the same time, you have to work on the front end, you have to work at the back end. So where exactly do you need to start? So we'll discuss about the solutions, and these of course are open-ended. You can have a different approach. I'll be more than happy to incorporate that as well. But let's say if I wanted to start, so one of the basic understandings is you don't need to know everything before you start. Just the basic concepts should be good enough. And these basic concepts are also pretty different, because that when I started in machine learning, I was not very good at mathematics. So it was difficult for me because I had to get a lot of information about mathematics as well before I go ahead. And for some people, mathematics come naturally to them, and it's really great. And of course, these people can transition into machine learning a bit easily. But if I could transition into machine learning, that anybody without any knowledge of mathematics can also transition into machine learning, it's not that big of a deal. It's just that you have to understand where you stand and what you need to do to get all that knowledge. So what I do is I typically follow a 60-40% ratio, which means that 60% of the things I feel that I know, and 40% are the learning opportunities. And these learning opportunities can be, doing some research, reading some research papers, or maybe looking at other people's implementations, or maybe just following, good people on LinkedIn and asking them questions and brainstorming with your friends. That also gives you a lot of good opportunity for learning. And of course, make your own ratios. It does not have to be 60-40. It can also be 50-50 or 80-20. It depends on your personal use case. Of course, ML is interdisciplinary. So it's important to understand that you cannot be master of everything. So you cannot have good information about machine learning. You cannot have good information about all of these concepts, all of these aspects, like machine learning, front end, back end, mathematics, all of that. But it's also important to have the basics correct. Right? So focus on the basics that are still missing. Focus on the things that are relevant for your project. So let's say if I'm working on textual data, I don't need to really worry about if I know about image classification or not. Probably in some other, of course, if you know, in an ideal world, I would like to understand all of these concepts, but just concentrate on what currently you're focusing on, and maybe after you are done with this task, you can take up that task at a later stage. And of course, take your time. To be very honest, I spent just 1.5 years just learning these concepts. So for the first 1 year, I was just learning. I was attending conferences. I was, being a listener at these events, and I just kept on imbibing all that I could get. And of course, it was a bit difficult at times because you don't know whether you will be able to get good results or not. But trust me, it takes time, but it is definitely worth the time. So how much understanding is needed? Just enough to convince yourself. So just you have to start. You have to convince yourself that I can do this kind of project or this kind of work, and then slowly, while going ahead, you can keep learning as you go on. Okay. Problem statements. So problem statements should be very unique towards your use case. And if you want to stay motivated in this field, if you want to stay motivated while learning, you have to understand that the problem use case that you're trying to solve is very unique to you. So let's say if, and I will discuss this in detail. So I'm currently working on a project for Indian Sign Language, and it is pretty unique to me. That's why I actually spent 6 to 7 months learning sign language at an institute. So if that problem statement was not close to me, it was not personal to me, I would have probably spent like a month or two, and then after that, probably I would have lost all the motivation. So choose those problem statements which are close to you, which are your surroundings, so that you feel you feel attached to that problem. You feel that you can definitely solve it, even though it might take some time. So feel free to do that. Decide if the problem is machine learning friendly or not. So one of the important things that I read recently, I attended one of the talks at a conference at Google, and one of the things that I found really interesting and that resonated with me was that the person giving the speech said that a good machine learning engineer knows how when to use machine learning, but a great one knows when to not use machine learning. So using machine learning is easier. Like you can just throw the data set to the model and get the insights. But what if you can actually solve these problems without using machine learning, right? You will so save a lot of resources. You will save a lot of time. So just give it a thought. You can visit this link and you can find exactly how you want to frame a problem. Participate in Kaggle competitions. These are also one of the alternatives. To be very honest, personally, I haven't participated in Kaggle competitions, but don't chase the leaderboard. I have participated, but I have never, went after the leaderboard. I have, received some data set from Kaggle. I have even, try to look at the leaderboards, how they have implemented it, how is my implementation different? What can I improve? And of course, always think of the bigger picture. You don't need to win just one competition. That is not going to define who you are. You just need to understand that your learning should be incrementing day by day. So as you go ahead, keep on learning and make sure that you have the bigger picture in mind. Of course, if you want to learn creatively and machine learning, as another source that I've added, it's called mlwave.com. Feel free to check this out after the session and reach out to me with any questions. Now, so this was like a very basic concepts, not even concepts, but methodologies that I followed. Now we'll go beyond this, and this is the main topic of our session. We'll not go into a lot of detail because I don't want to overwhelm anybody with a lot of conceptual knowledge, but we'll just try to discuss, and I will like to know your thoughts on this as well. So how will we go beyond our first machine learning model? And this will mostly focus on uh, start slowly going ahead of the normal machine learning things that we do and competitions are on a personal level, and more towards how a bigger company like Google, Netflix, or Amazon, they use machine learning in production environment. So we'll discuss that, not very, we'll not discuss any complicated features, extraction or anything like that. We'll just try to look at the methodology. That's all. Okay, some things I consider, some things to consider is that it's always important to find a flow in machine learning. So this is a very common flow that you might have that you might have also seen before. It's a sequential flow. So first you define an ML problem and propose a solution, right? So defining problem, as already mentioned, is one of the key factors or the key aspects. And then of course you propose a solution to that. You don't know whether the solution will work or not, but you have something, you have some vague idea in mind that probably it's a binary classification problem, or you wanted to go with, a softmax problem, something like that. Then you will construct your data set. By constructing, I mean whether you get it online through some Kaggle website, or you can get these from different ML repositories, or you can even make your own data set if you want to. Now, then you transform your data. Basically, you read the data, you see what are the cleansing that is required. If you want to add some values, you want to remove some values, then finally you train a model, and then you make predictions from the model. So this is a sequential flow. If you're starting out, this is the flow that I will definitely recommend everyone. Not so much for somebody who wants to apply this to production, or somebody who's trying to, apply this to a bigger audience, because it's a very sequential flow. We'll discuss about that as well, but if you're starting out, we'll have this flow in mind, and this works perfectly for almost all the use cases. Now, the data part, it's important. How do I collect the data, right? As already mentioned, Kaggle or other online resources, web scraping, manually collecting data, one of the things that you could definitely do. I personally prefer Kaggle or any other resource, because then I don't have to work extra hard. So definitely feel free to try out these alternatives. And then of course look at if there are similar data set available. So if there are similar data sets available, you can have a reference point, and then from that you can synthesize data, or you can even create your own data, or you can just use that data set and hope that it fits your problem. It might or it might not. How do I become one with the data? A beautiful article written by one of my very close friends, Shahid Paul. I have included the link in that. It gives you an entire picture of how exactly data works in machine learning, and how can you, as a researcher, as somebody who's starting out, would get to use these data for effectively building your machine learning models. Let's go ahead. Now comes the very important aspect, the modeling part, and this is where your actual machine learning knowledge will come into picture. So which model should I consider? Uh, how do I train a model? How can I train a model faster? How can I train it better? How do I validate a model? And how do I debug the model? So all these questions are definitely quite interesting, and at the same time, these are all open-ended questions. Nobody actually knows that if this model works better or not. We have some guidelines that, if you are working with image data, a CNN model which will work better than a normal a feed-forward network. And this happens because of some inherent qualities of a CNN model, because they work extensively well with image data. So we have some guidelines, but at the same time, we are not sure which CNN model will work the best for us. So it's a lot of trial and error. So if you're starting out with machine learning, if you're just getting into this field, I will personally recommend that you should try and you should fail as well, because that will actually help you learn quite a lot. So the answer to these questions is that you have to keep on trying, and the answers to these questions will definitely get better as you go along. But if you want to have a detailed look on these questions, there's a good link to this. This is called as Google has their own website on machine learning, and and you can click on this link. You'll find all of these relevant information through this link, and of course you can ask me questions at the end. So we'll move ahead. Now another thing that you would want to consider is, does my machine learning model integrate well with other systems? And these other systems can be either a web application. So your machine learning model is good enough, but you would want to make sure that it works well with uh, you know it works well in real life. So whether you want to have a mobile application or a web application, or you want to deploy it on a Raspberry Pi, right? And of course, these are endless possibilities. You can try out your hand at all of them, and realize that deploying or integrating a model with different systems also has a lot of impact on how you're training a model. So these all of these aspects are really interconnected. So also one more thing is, think about other components of your project too, not just ML. So when we are talking about machine learning, it's not just machine learning, it's a lot of different components that work together to complete your overall project. Uh, Now, the last thing that I considered is that, can we push this model to production? That is, can we actually use this model and provide a service to an external customer? If yes, then we have done a really good job. If no, then definitely there is a scope for improvement on a machine learning model, right? So now we'll go one step ahead towards for this, and this is going to be more about, we'll be discussing more in terms of how these big companies like my company at Symantec or Netflix, Google, how exactly do they use machine learning in production? How do they do all of these cool machine learning stuff with their data? So we have a concept called machine learning pipeline. Uh, so as you already kind of will have some idea, pipeline is basically you have all of these steps defined, right? So in a pipeline, you have a starting, you have a processing, you have an end. So you have defined the whole process. So any data that comes into this pipeline will have to go through these processes. So your machine learning model is a sequential flow of these models, or these phases. So in this pipeline, we have the model, which is, of course, a very important aspect. But this is not just the end of our pipeline. Okay. So we have data collection and verification as well. It's important for us to collect the data. And it's also important that we can verify that the data comes from a good resource or not, right? So let's say if I'm working on some on machine learning capabilities using IoT devices, and I don't know whether my IoT device is actually valid or not, or whether it's working correctly or not. So these also play a very important role. Then we have something called as feature extraction. So after we have the data ready, we want to extract features from those. So if you have worked with data before, mostly if you're working with big data, you have something called as JSON objects. So these JSON objects contain key value pairs of information, and you would need to have you need to have some sort of a function that extracts features from the entire JSON. And of course, it could be JSON, it could be a flat file, it could be different files. But just that we would want to understand that a machine learning pipeline does more than just model building. Then we have process management tools. Basically, we want to have a process that is defined, and you want to manage that. Then we, of course, have very important is configuration and monitoring. So the whole pipeline, it's running on a different node, or a set of computers, and you want to monitor those computers. You want to monitor whether our pipeline is working or not. Uh, then we have a resource management stuff where we want to make sure that our resources are managed properly. And then, of course, we have some analysis tools. This can either be for the model or for the cluster on which the computer is running. And then, very important is we have the serving infrastructure. We want to make sure that our the data that is being ingested into the pipeline is being actually served using machine learning. Now, this was the pipeline. I'll discuss about the workflow. So the workflow is quite similar to what we have seen in the sequential workflow. We have a source, and we code our model, which is pretty easy. After that, we train, evaluate, and tune our model. This is also one of the basic things that we do. Uh, Now deploy your trained model. So you can either deploy it on the web, or you can you use REST endpoints. You can deploy it on Kubernetes and Docker. Then you're going to get predictions from your model. Of course, the whole point of building a model is to expose that as a service. And then the last things are very important is monitoring the ongoing predictions and manage your model version. So what if you change your model? What if you retrain your model? how will it affect your entire the whole workflow? So that is also an important question. So couple of factors that we consider is that first we have an ingestion thing where we ingest the data coming in. We have pre-processing, which is more of like feature extraction, which is feature, and then feature engineering, where we can add some certain features based on domain knowledge or based on some other criterias. Then we have model training and evaluation. Finally, we have deployment. So deployment is probably very important because you want to make sure that our service is actually used by different users. Now, handling ML models at scale. So as already mentioned that we would want to discuss about how exactly different companies uh, scale their ML models, right? So we have something called as ML Flow, which is a new concept. It's an open source platform. So open source pretty interesting. It comes in different languages. That's why it's language agnostic. It runs the same anywhere, so you can test it out on your local machine and then deploy it on a cluster. It's very easy to use. We'll have a demo at the end of the session, and it scales from local environment to large servers pretty easily. So we have three components. We have ML flow tracking, projects, and models. Uh, just to give you an understanding, it's basically you would want to train your models iteratively. You want to have different hyperparameters. You want to test out if your model works for for a particular set of configurations. Then you can try out different configurations. So answer to those questions that I have left in that session or in those slides. How do we know which model works better? To be honest, we don't. Therefore, we use a lot of models. So we train different models, and then ML flow helps us to choose between which is the best model for us. And we'll discuss this in details. So all of these three different components work effectively. ML flow tracking is basically you have an ML flow server. You can train your model either it's a notebook or a cloud job, and then you have UIs, user interfaces, which can effectively help you understand which of the model is working the best for you. We have some ML flow projects where you can directly integrate ML flow and with Kubernetes and then use it for deployment. And then we have ML flow models, which means that ML flow can be integrated with PyTorch, sklearn, all of these different frameworks, and they will still give you a unique, a universal interface. Now we'll have a collab demo. I actually have opened it. So this is the demo. The notebook is already running. And after that, we also have another demo by Databricks. But first, let's just quickly go through this demo. And this is specifically for ML flow. So you can have a look at that. It's already mentioned in the slides as well. So have a look at that. So when you're working with Colab, Google Colab, it's free of cost. So it's mostly like a VM running in the cloud for you. So you can do some very basic commands like df-h to give you the memory. And I done this to see how much RAM am I using. And I can call it anytime. So if I call print m, it's going to just get how much of the RAM that I'm using at this point. So currently, if I run this, it's going to show that I'm currently, I think, I think it, okay. So basically, I don't have any GPUs right now. So I'm only running on CPU because we don't actually need GPUs. Otherwise, it's going to give me GPU performance as well. Otherwise, anyway. So I'll install these ML flow dependencies using pip. It's pretty straightforward. Now we'll work on the Reuters dataset. So the Reuters dataset, as already mentioned, we have 11,000 news articles, and these are labeled over 46 different topics, right? So now we have a problem statement defined that we want to classify all of these news wires based on these different labels, okay? And I've written a very simple machine learning a model using Keras. An important thing to notice is that I have imported mlflow.keras, which is going to give me a good understanding of how exactly my model is working. So let's do one thing. So as you can see that I'm just writing this Reuters file. So I'll just write it. So if you see on the left hand side, you can see that my Reuters.py file has been written to the disk. Now I can run this with certain system arguments. So all of these system arguments are actually the number of words that I will consider, the batch size, and the number of epochs. So we'll quickly go ahead and try to run this. Okay, so it's going to start training that model. So now you will see that it's training for 10 epochs. There are different things that you could of course check out here. So these are basically my training data set shape, training data set size, and then of course we can use different models. So in the previous one we had like 1,000 words, and we have a batch size of 32. So 1,000 words mean that we will just get the first 1,000 words of the entire news, and we'll make predictions based on that. And we can see that our test accuracy is around 78%, which is decent. So I will just increase this. We'll increase the batch size. We'll increase the number of epochs as well, and we'll increase the word length as well. So we are now considering 1,200 words. And then of course we can run another one, which is a smaller version. We can run on, let's say, 800 words. We'll select the first 800 words from every newsletter, and we are going to go for a 16 batch size, and we have to run it only for like 5 epochs, which is decent. All right, now we'll look at pretty interesting stuff. So after this is trained, I will run MLflow UI, which is like the common common thing for running, or which is the command for running MLflow UI. So I'll quickly run MLflow UI. So it's going to start that at this port, which is the local host at the VM. So if I have to access that, I actually first need to stop this. I need to first expose that 5,000 export to a different location. And then I can run MLflow UI again. So it's going to run MLflow UI on the 5,000 port. And then with the help of this JavaScript, I can directly look at that using this link. So I have now opened that link, and you can see that it's starting to load. It takes a slight time because it's a bit delayed. We cannot directly click on this link because it's going to open my local host, but it's actually running on the local host of the VM on Google Colab. So this is a workaround. So now you can see that on the Reuters dataset. So we have different experiments. So we have a default experiment. We have another experiment based on our use case. So we have actually had this Reuters dataset. So you can see that we have used 3 different configurations. We have 5 epochs, 15 epochs, 10 epochs, and then we have different matrices attached to it. So if I click on any of these models, it is going to give me a gist of the entire data set. So basically the batch size, epochs, learning rate, the number of layers, and the optimizer name. An important thing is that we can actually see the whole model summary from this. So this is the model summary. We have the model.h5 file. We have conda.yaml. So conda is more or less like Docker. You can directly use this and run it in a container. And we have good visualization as well. So if I want to look at accuracy, I can directly click on this link, and I can see that, up until I think after 6 or 7 epochs, it kind of became pretty constant. And then I can maybe add loss as well. So loss should go down. And as you can see, that it's constantly going down. It comes out to be around 0.14, which is quite good for us. So this can be used, and you can see that it is attached to a different hash. So we can use this hash to deploy a model in production. And of course, we can take some notes that, this model is working very well for us. At the same time, we can use other important, we can test out other things as well. So if I wanted to have a much more bigger parameter look, I can just definitely click on this button. It's going to give me all these information. So pretty straightforward, pretty interesting as well. We'll now, if you want, we can stop there, and we can, of course, I think for another one. So we have another data set for wine as well. So basically, based on you have to give a variable based on how exactly the wine tastes for you. So it's a pretty common data set. It's on UCI machine learning. You can have a look at that. I've used scikit-learn in this, pretty commonplace, works really well. I've done a bit of exploratory data analysis. I've seen how my data set looks like. And then of course it works pretty similar. I am training it on based on different configurations. And then at the end, I can just tag these versions. So I can tag this ID, this is the hash, and I can tag that based on different features of my model. So so this was about the collab link. Feel free to have a look at that. Feel free to go deep dive and understand if MLflow works well for you or not. We have also something called as Databricks. So Databricks, if you click on this link, you will be redirected to something that I created just about now. So you can just import this notebook, and this is free of cost. So as you can see, it's kind of similar to what a lot of organizations already have. So they deploy these models on a cluster. So right now I have created an analytics with their cluster, which is free of cost. I'm using Databricks Community Cloud, as you can see, and it's free of cost for anyone if they want to try. And they have these clusters where you can actually train your model. So I have trained this model, I think half an hour before the session. This is a very basic concepts of MNIST, which is based on different alphabet, based on different numbers, or based on the image of the number, you have to categorize which digit does it belong to. Pretty commonplace. And at the end, so this is the whole model. And the important aspect is that I'm passing in different arguments. So I'm passing in different batch sizes, different epochs. I am passing in a different epoch size. I'm passing in number of hidden units I can increase to 1024. And based on that, I can, of course, get the MLflow UI for that. So this is out of the box for Databricks. So just wanted to show you that this could also be done on different platforms. It's not just for TensorFlow or Keras, it's multi-platform. As you can see that I have also done 4 runs on it, different batch sizes, different epochs, and you can see that the accuracy is different. So let's say if the accuracy works is the best for us, I can just quickly go ahead and say that, this is the one that is working for me, and I can use that in production. So feel free to have a look at this link as well. So this was it about from the session. If you have any questions, I just wanted to leave like 20 minutes at the end for questions and answers that I could, give some good knowledge on. And thank you for all for listening to me today. It was great. I had a great time. So see you next time. This is my website, akshaybahadurcom. You can find the content at bit.ly/beyondml. So feel free to have a look at that as well. And if you want to work with me, if you want to do some research, if you feel that you could, be interested in getting to know more of what I do, feel free to reach out to me on GitHub on my personal website, and I'll be more than happy to connect and discuss. All right. So I think I have a few questions which I would like to take very quickly. Um, do I have? Okay, yeah. So I'll just quickly go from the first one. So Manish mentioned, I think if Manish is online, you are one of the 8 Google developer experts for machine learning from India. I also want to be a part of it. So yeah, so Google has their own kind of a community program called as Google Developer Experts. So basically, they give certifications to different individuals if they have a specific skill set. So I am now, I think they're not 8, they're I think around 20 now. When I applied, when I got into this this panel, there are only 8 experts from India from machine learning, and I think in the world there were around 50. So we get to work very closely with the TensorFlow team. I actually got a chance to go to Google's office in California last year, and one of my projects was selected, and I was pretty excited. So I went to their offices in California. I worked with the TensorFlow team. I shared my work with them. I got to understand a lot of good aspects, how exactly can, I make my work better. So it's a good thing for becoming a developer expert. You have to apply. I'll share the links with you. I think if you can just Google developer experts from Google, you will have these links, and you can not just be a developer in machine learning, you can be a developer in Android, or I think Angular. There are like 7 to 8 different technologies that you could be an expert in. You will be interviewed, of course. I was interviewed twice by Google folks, and they thought that I could be a good fit for this program. I hope that answers your question, Manish. Amna asked me, I'm actually working on a first ML project in which I'm using TensorFlow libraries. I'm in asset folder, but I want to load from cloud instead of local. Um, by cloud, if you mean Google Drive, we have something for Google Drive where you can directly mount your drive onto Google Colab and you can read directly from it. Maybe if you do a bit of Google search on that, you will find your answer. Please share the link. Ramesh is asking. So the link is, I just type out the link. It's bit.ly uh, slash beyond ML. So if you click on this link, or if you just type this link, you will be transported that to my GitHub page. Okay. Another question is how to keep ourselves to track, because there are a lot of topics, information available. What is ideal career path for DS, ML engineer? Yeah. So to be honest, there are a lot of good information available, and that means that you will always have something to learn. You will always have some pieces of information that will be missing, of course. But at the same time, uh, I think if you just have your basics correct, so just follow a couple of courses. You cannot, of course, do all the courses in a given amount of time. You just follow one, make sure that you do it correctly, make sure you understand all of those concepts. And then once you are done there, then you can go on to the next one. But it's important that you should also do a lot of self-learning. So self-learning does not mean that just studying from what the course have taught you or from any book. You have to implement what you have learned in some of your real world use cases. So I think that is something that I did, and it's been very helpful. When you face any problem, what is the general flowchart that you follow to debug it? Rajiv has asked me. So when I face any problem, it depends on the problem, of course. So to be very honest, I have to make sure that I check each and every component of a machine learning pipeline. So whether it's data collection, whether my data is getting collected properly or not, whether it's validated properly. After that, if I'm using it for a machine learning model, I have to make sure that I do a good amount of visualization on on my features. So I want to visualize the data that I'm getting, because I think even if I spend like a month solving a problem, and if it doesn't work in production, it is not going to look good on me. So it's very important that you visualize correctly, and feature engineering is important. You have to make sure that you are not just choosing you're choosing relevant features. So it means that you could probably even use features that are not available, but that is basically you can have some mathematical calculations or transformations on particular features to get new features which might be more interesting. So yeah, so debugging is mostly following intuition, making sure that every step is correct. And then after that, if I still face a problem, then of course it's good to have different perspectives. So if you're working with a team, it's good that everybody contributes, and because that will help you in getting a good understanding of what you're building. Uh, So Dina asked me if I want to solve a problem using deep learning, how much theory I need to learn before effectively using Keras to implement the model. To be honest, as already mentioned, I think it's a 60-40 ratio for me. Have your basics correct of machine learning, have some understanding of the framework like Keras, and then if you feel confident enough, if internally you feel that you are much more that you could actually solve this problem, or not exactly solve, but you can actually address the problem, then feel free to just start. And then of course you can learn as you go ahead. So let's say if something is not working for you, you can debug that. You can paste the your questions on Stack Overflow. People can answer those questions. You can take into those into account. I used to do that. So I used to post everything that I did on LinkedIn, and I met all these amazing people on LinkedIn just because they tried to correct me, and they were pretty right, because I was starting out. I did anything that I wanted to, and I just posted on LinkedIn or on GitHub, and then somebody raised an issue that you can do it differently. This would be much better, or this process is going to be much more refined. So I learned about that, studied that, implemented that, and that's how I learned. So if you internally, if you feel that you could go ahead and train a model, just go for it. Uh, how do we decide if our whether a model is production ready or not? I definitely. So the answer to that question is, if you yourself are a consumer, whether you would want to pay for that service or not, or whether you want to consume that service or not. So that's the simple answer to it. But it's much more complicated. You have to have the whole pipeline set into place. Let's say you have to understand how many people will you be serving. So let's say if I'm at Facebook and I know that around 100 million people will be using my service on in machine learning, then I cannot just train a small model and feel that it's going to work in production, right? I have to test it out for 100 million people. I have to make sure that if, let's say, if something happens and let's say 200 million people started using it, so there's an increase in twice the number of people that are using my service now. So I can scale it up or not, or whether they will be able to do justice to the model or not. So things like that. All these small questions are definitely going to be helpful. So the very simple answer is that if you yourself are a consumer, whether you will be able to consume your own service or not is the most simple answer to your question, Anuja. They just asked me what are day-to-day activities of ML engineer in typical project life cycle. So it's different for different companies, I believe. First and foremost, the most important aspect is understanding the use case, understanding the business problem, and also understanding if you can actually solve this problem using machine learning or not, whether you actually need machine learning to solve a problem or not. Because let's say if you're working at a company and you have the best algorithm, it's the best algorithm in the world, but if it is not making money for the company, it's not effective, right? So it's important to understand the use case. It's important to understand how efficiently can you solve it. If simple if and else condition is going to solve it, then of course go for it. You can call it AI and ML, but it is simple if and else condition. But whatever works for best for the company is the correct answer. So day-to-day activities are just like getting the data, collecting it. Analyzing takes an important point, because you want to analyze the data, you want to visualize it, and then of course we have to train it into put that model into production. We have to maintain that, monitor that, retrain the model. So it's definitely interesting. If it depends on its accuracy on test set. If it performs better on test set, yeah, I think if it works well on the test set, means that if your model is working well on the data that it has not seen, then we can assume that it is going to work for new customers as well. How to get access? Saurav has asked me. Saurav have pinged the link bit.ly/beyond-ml. Have a look at that. So where can we find this notebook? It's on the link bit.ly/beyond-ml. Any example of ML flow with R? Yeah, I think R is definitely, you can integrate that, Tanvi. But unfortunately, I don't have any answer to that question, because I haven't worked with R before. But you can just search on Google. You will find a lot of resources for using ML flow with R. Uh, can I get all PPT and code link after webinar? Balwant, yes. Feel free to do that. Go to bit.ly/beyond-ml. You will find all the links. And of course, I will ask analytics with that team to give the link as well, so that you guys are able to see all of these PPTs and the code as well. How to apply this problem to deep learning? Deep learning in general is interesting, because it eliminates the need of feature engineering. So basically, deep learning model helps you uh, uh, making the process a bit more easier, I believe, because you don't have to worry about the entire process of extracting features, because the model does that for you. So it kind of is like how your brain works. So I have worked extensively with deep learning. Feel free to check out my GitHub page. You will find a lot of good links on my GitHub page as well. Uh, so yeah, Aruna, my research area is deep learning using CNN in agriculture. I feel it's very interesting, Aruna. If you have any questions for me, you can drop them in the comments. I will more than happy to answer them, or you can email me, or you can yeah, send it to me on GitHub or on my personal website. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. Collab versus Databricks, which one works better while we working on ML models? I think it depends on the use case. Collab works quite well for me. Databricks is also pretty well. So Databricks is more of what I would want to do in production, because it's a cluster. So it's not just one node that I'm training on. I'm training on a cluster of, I'm training on different nodes. So the processing is faster. It's much cheaper. Whether if I'm training it on a single Collab notebook, it is going to be slightly more expensive and slow at the same time. So production ready, I would want to go with Databricks. But if I have to do something for a project or for a presentation, Collab will work the best for me, because it's free, it's Google backed. You will find a lot of good articles on how to effectively use Collab or Databricks. How to start to try Kaggle competition problems. So yeah, as already mentioned, Kaggle, you cannot see that as, as a baseline, that if you solve a Kaggle competition, or if you are number one in the Kaggle competition, you will do very well in machine learning. It's not that, but for Kaggle competitions, what I've realized is that the feature engineering part is very important. You have to understand how the model works. You have to understand how your data set looks like. So if you want to get good at Kaggle competitions, have a good data set cleaning abilities, have good data exploration skills, have good visualization skills, and then of course, once you have that, you can synthesize good features from the data set. So getting good features will help you train a better model. So I think that is going to be definitely helpful. Uh, can you throw some light on current work in the field of data science using reinforcement learning? I think reinforcement learning is definitely very interesting on it. Although personally, I have not used reinforcement learning, but it is definitely being used a lot in robotics, because I know someone very closely. So she's also part of the GD Google Developer Experts family, and she's working in reinforcement learning in the field of robotics. So she trained her own physical robot, and the company trained their own physical robot to to work effectively using reinforcement learning. So it's pretty interesting. I don't have a lot of answers to those questions at this point, but feel free to reach out. I'll share some links with you on it, and then I think that's going to be very helpful for you. What are the best ML projects? Venkata Sai Pavan has asked me. So best ML projects are the ones that solve your problem. So if you are, so let's say for me, my best project is sign language one, which I'm currently working on. It's very interesting to me. It solves a use case, solves a real world problem. It can actually help people. Therefore, I am actively looking forward towards that. So I think that's for me. And of course, if it is personal to you, it's going to be good for you as well. Introduce a good course tutorial and the path for cybersecurity intrusion detection with ML and DL by Python. So yeah, to be honest, I actually haven't worked with a lot of intrusion detection, but I know that there is a course by Udacity about in cybersecurity and machine learning. So I think you could definitely have a look at that. Just search for Udacity cybersecurity machine learning. You'll find the link. It's a pretty good course. It was free of course, I think, when I was part of it. So pretty interesting. I have statistics background with data analyst experience of 9 years with a minimal amount of ML experience. Uh, so Vigneshwaran asked me, so if you have good statistics experience, that means that you are, I think, almost halfway there, because statistics is one of the, one of the backing pillars for machine learning. So if you want to start, I think I think few, because you have a good experience in statistics and you have already worked with data analysts, so it will be easier for you to transition into a machine learning role. If you want to transition, I think probably start with some Kaggle competitions, not competition, but just do some projects on Kaggle and see if it works for you or not. And then of course you can, as already mentioned, what I personally prefer is going through some online courses. So you have good courses by Coursera that will definitely help you transition. For freshers, focus on projects or focus on certificates. Projects, then what project? And if projects, then what? So yeah, Ashish has asked me. So for freshers, it's I think it's a combination of both. So the certificates don't actually matter if you cannot justify the knowledge. So let's say if I ask you the basics of machine learning, and if you have done 10 different certifications, but if you're not able to tell the basics of it, then you are of no use to my company. But even if you haven't done any certificates, or if you haven't done any projects, but if you know your basics of machine learning, then I will be more than happy to hire you in my company. So definitely both are very important, because projects certifications help you get the good knowledge or the theory part, or some getting started will be easy for you if you are working in a certificate. And for projects, it is going to be for your own benefit. So it shows that you actually went out of your curriculum to get these certifications and then do these projects. So if what projects, there is no correct answer to what projects, whatever works best for you, probably start with easy ones. So if you're working with image processing, start with digit classification, alphabet classification. If you're working with normal data set, try out Titanic data set, or maybe try out Iris data set. So yeah, I think just any problem which is the basic one, just start with that and make sure that you learn as you go along. How do you ensure that deployed model is correct and it works for all sort of cases that you develop and model? So Balamurli, I think good question from your side. To be honest, we actually don't have any idea whether a model is working best for us or not. That's why we have a monitoring in place. So basically, what happens is we monitor the model constantly to see if our model is working correctly or not, if it's still making predictions or not, or if it is making correct predictions or not. But mostly what happens is that we retrain the model. So if we get the data, we make some predictions, and we hope that it works well for like a week, and then every day or every week, when the machine learning service is not being used so much, then we retrain the model and then we redeploy. So yeah, so that's how we adjust the model to the incoming data. So the model cannot correct itself. That will be reinforcement learning. That's a different concept, but we test the model for a week. We make sure that we throw everything at the model, and then if it works, it's a best model for us. And then of course we retain it based on the data that is coming in from different sources. Madheshwaran has asked me, I have been a Java developer with 6 years of experience. I've started machine learning. How could I transition from non-data background to data analytics field? I'm not feeling confident after taking. Yeah, so I think Madheshwaran, it's not a big deal if you want to transition into machine learning. I think anybody could do it. So if you're not feeling confident after taking MOC courses, I think then what you need is you need to solve some problems. So solving some problems mean getting the data set from Kaggle or from any repository and just try to solve it. Okay, and see if it works for you or not. And take your time. So I remember when I was starting out, I used to just uh, be stuck at a problem for a weeks at times, and I would be, I would feel really low, because I thought that with the help of MOOCs I can learn a lot of things, but the more important thing is you need to do a lot of self learning. So after MOOCs, do some projects or solve some problems from Kaggle or from different repositories. And then once you have that, that will help you build the confidence. And once you have the confidence, then things will become much more easier for you. How deploy my ML models? Ashish has asked me. So there are different aspects to it. Either you can make a lightweight model and deploy it directly on the device. So maybe if you are making a model for a mobile phone, you can deploy it on Android, or you can deploy it as a REST endpoint. You can deploy it in Kubernetes clusters or containers and expose REST endpoints. So it depends on the use case entirely. Abhay has asked me which is relatively better to learn more about the technology that interests me, working on a good project, interning at a company. I think both, because to be honest, let's say if I'm currently working, if I start working for a company or interning at a company, then I will only be working on problems that make money for the company, right? So let's say if my interest in is doing some sort of a social work, right? Let's say, but because the company is only will be willing to work only on projects which which give them revenue, so do both, right? If you can, if you get an opportunity to intern at a company, it's very good because you will learn how to solve these problems in for real world use cases. And at the same time, you can even pick up some of these projects on your own based on your interest. So I think doing both is important. I used to do both. I used to have a work project that was, of course, giving me money, it was paying bills for me, and then I used to do something for my own because that helped me cure my curiosity. What is the workflow of project work in an org related to data scientist for perspective, ideal analysis? So workflow is pretty commonplace. I think it's pretty common for I think every background having a good use case. So your program manager or the senior personality is going to have a use case in mind. Okay, and then based on that, you will design a problem statement that this is what I'm trying to work on. So to give you an easy example, let's say if I want to do a sentiment classification on Twitter data, so let's say if I work at Twitter data machine learning team and they want to identify messages based on whether they are good or bad, whether they are funny or not funny, let's say whether they're funny or not funny. So then we have a problem statement in place. We will have the data set. We will try out different models, see whichever works the best for us. We will deploy a pipeline. And we also know that, because tweets, we will get thousands of tweets every second. We want to have a machine learning model that can actually score these tweets in real time. So something like that is going to be helpful. Where can we watch the previous analytics with the sessions by Akshay Bahadur? If it is available somewhere, please share the link. Anish, I think you can ask the analytics with the team. I'm not sure if you can have access to that. But yeah, is deploying ML model related to image processing with high use of GPU over Raspberry Pi? It is possible for that, Jayant. You have to read about a book called as Tiny ML. This is one of my very close to my heart research areas about how can we minimize the resources when training a network or when deploying a network. A couple of things that you could do is, the easiest thing is that just deploy in the cloud and make Raspberry Pi use the internet. Other than that, you can try out different techniques like let's say pruning or quantization and all these specific these very basic concepts of how to prune your model or make your model more or lightweight. At the same time, there is a book called as Tiny ML, which is a very excellent book on how to deploy machine learning models on edge devices. So Jayant, I hope that answers your question. What are the parameters to judge or select which model would be the best for a problem? I think, Anuja, it depends on the use case. I personally try a lot of different models. So I tried, let's say 15, 20 different models, see whichever fits the best for my use case. And then of course, having people to talk about different models will also be helpful. So if you have a team or if you have some friends, you can definitely ask them for some reference. With the new algorithms coming in like auto ML, etc., can also boost to some extent. And important is to learn maths of algorithms or the maths. Yeah, Rahul, I think so. Rahul has a good question. So he's asking if, because of all the new advancements, whether we need to learn the mathematics or not. To be very honest, the answer is you don't need to learn mathematics because at this point it's not really necessary. But if you want to get into the research part, if you want to understand how algorithms work, I will highly recommend, if you are starting out, to have at least some basic understanding, because that is going to help you become a better data scientist, become a better machine learning engineer. But it depends on the personal use case. It depends on if you are interested in learning mathematics or not. So yeah, I think if you have the time, if you have the curiosity, you can definitely give it a try. Uh, what are the best ML projects and reference books? So there's a great book by Ian Goodfellow called as The Introduction to Deep Learning, which is a very, very nice book. We have something from Aurelien Gideon. It's a hands-on book using scikit-learn, TensorFlow, Keras. You can try that as well. Best ML projects, as already mentioned, I think it should suit your use case. Uh, I am working on sign language, as already mentioned. That is probably one of the best problems that I have worked on. So, it depends on your use case. It depends on what is personal to you. Okay. If we have to be best in competitive coding, uh, yeah. So Preeti, great question. To be very honest, what companies look for is good engineers. So it means that you don't have to be great in computer in machine learning. You have to be good engineers. So basically, you have to have good understanding of computer science in general. So if you look at all these companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, or like any of the big five companies, they in the machine learning domain, they first ask you these basic algorithms, data structures and algorithms, and once you clear those rounds, then they will have a basic round for machine learning, and that's how you land an interview. So it's important to understand the basics of computer science. If you are like starting out, or if you're a fresher, if you want to get into machine learning, you should have these basics correct as well. And then of course you should have some idea of machine learning. So I think both of them are really important. Does it tough to get internship? At this point, Preeti, because of the whole pandemic, it is slightly tougher. I definitely would agree. But at the same time, I think with all the new use cases that are coming up, and people have transitioned into this in this field, and we have every day we have different use cases that are coming up which can be solved using machine learning. People are having new jobs, so it is definitely tough. It's a bit tough because it's not traditional computer science job, but it's easy. I mean, if it is easy if you work hard and if you have your basics correct. Which resources you have used for practice projects? Resources, I have used Kaggle.com. I have seen projects on GitHub. I have read some books. So all of these I think are important. Which first I need to learn, ML or data science? I think because uh, it depends. If you want to get into the data exploration part, data analysis part, you should go with data science. But if you want to, let's say, train models, you can go with machine learning. But to be honest, I do a bit of both, because it's more of a cycle. Like you can, I mean, it's more of a team of work, so you cannot be weak in one and be strong in the other. You have to have good knowledge, and at the same time, of course, you will have one research area that you can pick up, but you need to have some knowledge of all these fields. Preeti asked me, if you want to create chatbot, what's the best way to go with being a complete beginner? I think Preeti, for building chatbots, you can find some resources on YouTube as well. But what I will recommend is having this idea that you would want to learn machine learning, and creating chatbots will come at a later stage. So first focus on learning machine learning, focus on how to train models, how to build good learning models. And then once you have that picture in mind, all these questions will automatically become much more clear, because building chatbots, you will have to first understand how NLP works, how natural language processing works, how recurrent networks work. So it's slightly tough to answer at this point. First, focus on the basics. Any tips for improving EDA skills? Pranch was asking me. So for EDA skills, I think the best tip is to keep practicing. Just pick out a data set from Kaggle, try out different techniques. I usually prefer practicing. So even right now, I'm still practicing. I still have a couple of projects that I'm working on, and some of them are done, some of them are in research stage. So just keep on working. Sir, I didn't get the link for the code and PPT. Can you please share? Balwant, yeah. So just go to bit.ly/beyond-ml. You will find the link there. Yeah, so the recording, Shibani, I think the recording will be available soon. I think the analytics with their team will send you the link for the recording as well. What was your turning point in becoming proficient in ML? I think my turning point was more of out of curiosity. So I did not just work in machine learning. As already mentioned, I started out as a Java developer. While working as a Java developer, I wanted to challenge myself a bit more. So I explored image processing. I explored computer vision. I explored IoT. I explored blockchain as well. I have a white paper in blockchain, uh, just out of fun. And then I stumbled upon machine learning, and I found it pretty interesting. So I mean, it's important that you explore all these things. I explored quite a lot, and then I was able to integrate computer vision with machine learning to build good use cases. So yeah. So will you please repeat the name of the book? Yeah. So name of the book, Jayant, is Introduction to Deep Learning by Ian Goodfellow. So it's very popular. So just write Ian Goodfellow Deep Learning book. You will find the first link. It's I think it's on you. It's on Amazon as well. How to deal with pressures that become from lack of experience. Whenever I glance over some LinkedIn profiles, I can see tags like 10 years of experience. Uh, yeah, Rishikesh, I think it's pretty common. I mean, I have 3.5 years, 3 years of experience, so it's pretty okay. Like if I could give sessions to people, anybody could do it. So 10 years of experience mean that the person is pretty experienced. That's good for him. But what's good for you is that you're younger. You have more you have more hunger for learning. You can try out new things. So you should look at it as a positive side. The experience doesn't matter, to be very honest. You just have to show the company that you can solve a problem, you can make money for them. I think that's all that's necessary. When steering from non-ML to ML career without having work experience, how to handle the scenario, Vigneshwaran, I think it actually doesn't matter if you are able to crack an interview for a company, or if you're able to solve use cases. It is going to be as good as if you have good experience with machine learning. So the only thing is that you should do some projects, or maybe have some understanding, because that's going to get the recruiter interested in you. Because even though you don't have experience in machine learning, or you don't have experience in the data field, I can still see as a recruiter that you have worked hard and you're interested in this field. So that's going to definitely give you, I will definitely give you a chance. And then of course, once you have that, then you can swing it out of the park. Are there any optimization techniques you applied? Are there any practices that best practices? So yeah, so Balamurli, I think there are a lot of optimization techniques. I personally have another research talk on optimizing machine learning networks, but that is kind of beyond the scope at this point. But to just give you an understanding, we basically start with some of the basic concepts of mathematics. So these concepts can include with like some of the very basic concepts like normalization, scaling. These are very small, very basic concepts of statistics, and we can apply that. And then of course we have some very complex optimizations as well. So you can definitely feel free to reach out to me. I will be more than happy to answer your questions uh, uh, personally on that front. Uh, so Shakib has asked me the scope for computer vision in India, or computer vision engineering. I think scope is there for every field, I believe, especially in computer science, because India is transforming into the digital age as we go along. So there's a lot of scope. So yeah, I mean, machine learning, computer vision, IoT, all these have like a great scope going ahead. When you say the interview, there are a lot of tech questions, right? But if I'm from a non-tech background, so which part I have to get more focus on, except the skill set that is required. I think it's important that you can convey your thoughts. That's very important. So of course, like if you don't have a technical degree, that's still fine. Google, Tesla, Apple, they don't require you to have a technical degree. If you have that acumen, if you are interested in that, you can definitely apply for a job, get an interview, and land a job. So that's not a problem. What are your recommendations for a beginner to ML? I think uh, Hajar, I think the only thing is that get your basics correct. Be consistent, keep learning, and it's going to take some time. It takes 6 to 7 months to see what you have done, but it is definitely worth the wait. What about big data knowledge in ML? Sumitra, yes. So I have a good experience with big data as well. So with most of the big companies, you don't work with small amounts of data sets. So actually, I wanted to showcase a big data project as well, like a data distributed machine learning work, which I could not because I don't have the time. As you can see, we are already 15 minutes past our time. So it's important that you have understanding of these aspects, because when you're working for a big company, you will be mostly working with distributed networks. You'll be working with terabytes and petabytes of data. How did you tackle the failures? The model that you developed was not come out well as expected. Yeah. So Balamurli, I mean, I have faced a lot of failures. You just learn from them. You keep improving yourself, and you just you can try hard the next time. That's the only thing. And if it doesn't work out, maybe ask your friends, brainstorm with them, and ultimately it's going to take some time, but it will definitely work. Could you briefly tell list of skills it takes to become a Google developer expert? Raf has asked me. I think if you're good in machine learning, if you're good in computer science in general, I think that's all that's required. So just the basics of machine learning. You need to be able to do community work. That is, you're open to giving talks at sessions. You're open to writing blogs. So all of these basic knowledge is very important. And of course, you need to have some expertise in TensorFlow, machine learning, all of these frameworks. How to learn computer vision to be a CV engineer? Shakib has asked me. So there's a great blog. It's called a Spy Image Search, which I follow very efficiently. So you can definitely have a look at that as well. What was the first Reuters model about in the presented collapse? So the Reuters dataset is basically, it's a collection of different news articles, and these articles belong to different categories. So one could be sports, one could be finance, and I had to categorize them based on the textual information. Arpit has asked me which one is better to learn, Google Cloud or AWS. Any resources you prefer to learn? To be honest, I think both are okay. Like you can even learn AWS, Google Cloud. I have learned Google. I have worked on AWS at my previous company, so I have good experience with AWS. But it's pretty easy. Like if you have learned one cloud service, it's the other one is almost the same. So you will have the basic concepts clear, and then you can transition into different cloud services. So that's not a problem. Where can we find the best data sets for any problem? I think if you go for datasets.google.com, Google has a search engine only for datasets, so you can search on for your problem. You can even search kaggle.com. So Kaggle also has a lot of datasets. You can get datasets from there, and then you have other repositories as well, like UCI ML, that will give you dataset. Uh, Preeti has asked me how to make good profile in data science field. I think doing good projects is definitely will be helpful. I think the most important aspect is you should be able to express your thoughts clearly in the interview. That's going to be really important. Uh, Being from a tier 3 college, is it hard to get placed in a good company? It's not actually, doesn't actually matter, to be very honest. It might be a bit tough because you have to go through some initial screenings, but if you clear that, it's everybody is the same. So yeah. Specific resume format, we don't have a specific resume format. It's just that you should write what you actually know about, and then you can answer questions. That's all. Does making research paper create an important effect on your project effectiveness? I think research projects, research papers are definitely useful because they show that you have done original work, but having them is not having them is not a disadvantage. If you have them, it's good because you can talk about these papers, but it does not really create any different atmosphere. It just shows that you have good research experience. And is that research paper is different from project? Yeah, research paper is of course because it is recognized by any by a publisher, right? So it means that they know they have cross referenced your work with their data set, and they see that you have done something original. So research papers are definitely important. Is there any field in space sciences that will include some data? I mean, I actually am not the correct person to answer those questions because I haven't worked on that. But feel free to reach out to me. I will connect you with certain folks that have worked on it, so that will be helpful to you. How do I know whether or not I'm improving in media? Then I think the answer to that is you have to just keep on exploring, keep on doing stuff, and once you feel confident, at that point, I understand that you are improving. So yeah. Could you share the Databricks sandbox which you have shown us? Can you practice in that for free? Yes, Vigneshwaran. So just go to cloud, just type cloud Databricks on Google, and you will find the first thing. You can log into that. It's free of cost, and you can work on that. What are the startup ideas in the field of machine learning and deep learning and AI? Arpit, I actually, if I had any idea, I would be working on a startup right now, and I would have opened any startup. But feel free to do that. I mean, I actually feel that India has a lot of good use cases. Personally, I would like to see people do good work in the field of healthcare and agriculture, because these two areas have the most potential, I feel, and they will also require, and they will also get the most advantage if you work good in this field. Arpit, again, no, I think, yeah. So how does GPT-3 helps in the future? I think this question is very open-ended, to be very honest, Pawan, because GPT-3 helps solve us a lot of problem, but it also creates a lot of problem for us. So I think we just have to wait and watch. I hope that GPT-3 does good work for us, because it's going to solve a lot of problems for us. If you want to know more about GPT-3, there's a great article by the Google DeepMind team. Yeah, you can go through that. It's very interesting. So yeah, I know ML. Our repeat has asked me. I know ML and now learning deep learning. I have worked in Kaggle, and so what more things do I need to learn? I think it's fine. I mean, if you have good knowledge in machine learning, deep learning, I think you can give some new projects a try. Try working on some projects, and I think that will be more than happy. I mean, that will be more than helpful for you. Can you tell the difference between GPT-2 and GPT-3? Actually, I haven't done a lot of research in GPT-2, but what I've seen is that GPT-2 was trained on, I think, 5 billion data points, and GPT-3 is now being trained on 53 billion data points. So that's almost 10 times of the data. And GPT-3 can actually solve a lot of use cases like building HTML websites just by giving some answers. And GPT-2, I think, helped beating the game of Go. So yeah, but I think you can definitely read a lot on the internet that's available. Ranchu, yeah, I think if you have done courses and if you're getting stuck in implementation, like practical implementations, I think the best use case or the best answer is to just keep on learning. Just try to search or try to see where you're lacking, because I was in the same position as you. So the only thing that I could tell you is, spend more time. Even if you don't do anything, even if you feel that you're not learning, it's still fine. Keep trying, keep try to Google what exactly is the problem and try to solve it, and then over the period of time you will learn a lot of these things. So yeah, just keep being persistent is the key. What can we do what can we do to get copyright reserved for our ML model? Jen, actually I don't have an answer to that. So the thing that you could do is, if you feel that your model is original, you can apply for a research paper. I'm not sure if you can get copyrights to an ML model, but you can give it a try. I mean, you can definitely publish papers on your ML model. How can we apply in Google, or where we can send our resume? Amna, I think you can go to the careers website at Google and you can apply. AI versus ML versus deep learning. It's pretty basic. I mean, AI is giving intelligence to the system, and that intelligence could be uh, through anything. Machine learning is giving intelligence to a system using data, and deep learning is when you actually the model that you are defining is based on your brain. That is, it's based on different networks, layers, and how your brain works. It mimics that. A reference book I already mentioned, Introduction to Deep Learning by Ian Goodfellow is pretty good. You have Introduction to Deep Learning, uh, uh, of course, by Ian Goodfellow. There's also another author, I think Francesco Quashola is also a good writer. He is also the author of Keras package. So to do that. Uh, is RPA will replace MLAI work in coming years? I actually don't know the answer to that. But I feel that if you want, Preeti, if you want to keep keep in the, I mean, keep yourself new in the field, you need to learn new technologies as they come. That's going to be helpful. Pranchu asked me, please repeat the PPT link, bit.ly/beyond-ml. I think analytics with their team will send you the link to that as well. Uh, but in DL, Preeti has asked me, but in DL we have more mathematics. Definitely, you need to have good understanding of mathematics. But even if you don't, that's okay. All these frameworks like Keras, TensorFlow, they take care of the mathematics for you. But it's good to understand, have an understanding of mathematics and how your model works.
Akshay,
Yeah.
yeah, we are running short of time, so
Yeah, I think so. I think it's you're already. I think we can wrap up the session. You can send me your questions on my personal website or on my email. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Um, so yeah,
thank you so much, Akshay, for joining us, and thanks to all the participants for joining this webinar. We'll be sending you the recording soon. Good evening.
thank you so much. Take care.